The credential room at Fort DeLand smelled like recycled air and old carpet, and on a Tuesday morning in late spring, it held 30 people who would have rather been somewhere else. Specialist Tara Wynn sat at the far end of the intake table with a stack of contractor renewal forms and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. She was 22 years old, 8 months into her first posting, and the administrative processing wing was exactly as thrilling as it sounded. She typed, she stamped, she filed. She did not expect anything in that room to stay with her for the rest of her life. The civilians filtered in at 8. Most of them were logistics contractors, a few IT specialists, one older man from the base's water reclamation office. They took their seats along the wall and waited to be called, the way people wait in a waiting room, heads down, phones out, patient with the boredom of it. The woman near the window did not have a phone out. She sat with her hands folded on her bag and looked at the middle distance. She was unremarkable in every way that Tara could see. A plain contractor's lanyard, sensible clothes, dark hair pulled back without ceremony. She was not young and not old. She had the kind of stillness that read, at first glance, as someone waiting on a delayed flight. Tara looked at her once, noted nothing, and went back to her forms. Colonel Aaron Brandt arrived at 8:30, without a scheduled slot on the day's roster. That was the first thing Tara noticed. He came through the side door with 2 base MPs flanking him and a sergeant carrying a manila folder, and the room shifted the way rooms do when rank walks in unannounced. People sat up straighter. Conversation stopped. Tara stopped typing. Brandt was the new post commander, 6 weeks in, and he had a reputation for what the senior NCOs called efficiency drives, credential sweeps, access audits, a running conviction that the base had grown sloppy on his predecessor's watch. He moved down the intake table scanning lanyards and faces, efficient and unhurried, and for a moment it seemed like a routine pass. Then he stopped at the woman near the window. He looked at her form. He looked at the flag on her file, a small red notation that Tara recognized as a clearance tier marker. He looked at it for a long time. "What is this clearance level?" he said. The woman looked up. "Sir?" "This." He set the folder on the table and turned it so she could see. "This tier designation. I've been running credential reviews on this post for 3 weeks, and I have never seen this access classification on a civilian contractor form. Not once. It's a valid classification, sir." "I'm sure it is." His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The room had gone completely still. "I'm sure that's exactly what someone carrying a fabricated clearance designation would say. This tier doesn't exist in the standard contractor registry. It's not in my system. It's not in any system I can access." "It wouldn't be, sir." Something passed across his face. Not anger exactly. More like the certainty of a man who has already decided the shape of the situation. He reached across the table and unclipped her base access badge from her lanyard with one deliberate motion. "You're going to the processing anteroom while I sort out what's real in this file," he said. "Sergeant Mace." The sergeant stepped forward. The woman stood. She did not argue. She did not flush, or stiffen, or let her eyes go sharp the way Tara might have in her position. She picked up her bag from the back of the chair, settled the strap on her shoulder, and looked at Colonel Brandt with an expression that Tara could not name then, and would spend years trying to describe later. Not defiance, not hurt. Something quieter than both. "May I make one call before I go in?" she said. "You may not." "Then I'll wait," she said, and walked through the anteroom door. The sergeant closed it behind her. Brandt turned back to the room, said nothing, and began working down the table again as if nothing had happened. 30 people watched him and did not speak. Tara turned back to her keyboard and typed nothing. Her fingers rested on the keys without pressing any of them. She had watched the whole thing. She had done nothing. She wasn't sure what she could have done. He was a colonel and she was a specialist 8 months in. But the doing nothing sat in her chest like something borrowed that she owed back. 15 minutes later, Sergeant Mace appeared at Tara's elbow. "Wynn, Colonel needs someone to sit in with the contractor. Documentation purposes. Take your notepad." Tara took her notepad. The anteroom was a smaller space. A table, 2 chairs, a wall phone, fluorescent light. The woman was sitting exactly as she had been sitting in the credential room, bag on her lap, hands folded. She looked at Tara when she came in, and gave a brief nod. the way you might nod to a stranger who holds a door. He said no calls, Tara said, and felt immediately how unnecessary it was to say it. I know, the woman looked at the wall phone, but if he changes his mind, or if someone makes a decision to let me make one, I'd like to call the JITSI duty line. That's the Joint Interagency Targeting Cell. I have the duty roster code memorized. 7 digits. The call will take about 3 minutes and we'll settle this completely. She paused. I'm not in a hurry. I just want you to know it's an option. Tara wrote it in her notepad. She didn't know why. It seemed like the kind of thing that mattered. They sat in quiet for a while. Outside the door, Tara could hear the processing room working through the rest of the contractors, the shuffle of forms, Brant's voice cutting in occasionally with a question. The woman near the table didn't fidget. She didn't check a watch she wasn't wearing. She sat like someone who had waited in harder places than this, for longer, with less certainty of outcome. Tara said finally, I'm sorry about your badge. The woman looked at her. For just a moment, something in her face went warm, the way a light goes on behind glass. Thank you, she said. That means something. It was 20 minutes before Sergeant Mace knocked and opened the door. His face had a different quality than when he'd closed it. Ma'am, he said. And Tara noticed the ma'am, noticed it like a change in air pressure. Colonel Brant has authorized you to place one call. The woman stood and went to the wall phone without haste. She lifted the receiver, dialed 11 digits from memory, and waited. When someone picked up, she said, GT duty line. This is a credentialing inquiry. Authorization roster code, 277-9er-416. A pause. Yes, I can hold. She held. Tara's pen was open on her notepad. She had stopped pretending to take documentation notes. The duty officer's voice came back on the line. There was a pause on that end, the particular silence of someone reading something for the first time, working through it page by page. Then, ma'am, I'm going to need to put you on a brief hold. There are some additional parties I need to loop in. Can you stay on the line? I have nowhere else to be, she said. The door behind Tara opened and Colonel Brant stepped in. He had the manila folder under his arm, and his expression said that he was here to close something out, to finalize the paperwork on a fabrication and move the morning along. He opened his mouth. The woman held up one finger. Not impudent, patient. She was still looking at the wall. Brant's mouth closed. The hold music ran for 90 seconds. Then a new voice came on the line. Older, deliberate, carrying the particular weight of a man accustomed to being heard. This is Major General Paul Wakefield. Who am I speaking with? Whetstone, sir, the woman said. Mountain relay post, Condell Ridge, cycle 12. A silence, 3 full seconds. My God, the general said. And then, quietly, with a steadiness that made Tara's hand stop moving entirely. Are you being given trouble, Sergeant? A credentialing question, sir. My access tier isn't in the standard contractor registry. No, he said. It wouldn't be. Stand by. A brief exchange offline, muffled, and then the duty officer's voice came back reading from a document. Flat, formal, each word placed with care. Bronze Star with Valor, Sergeant First Class, Cycle 12, Mountain Relay Operations, Condell Ridge Sector, Sole Operator, Mountain Signal Post 7, 11 hours and 43 minutes, under sustained direct fire following primary team's emergency evacuation. Signal post maintained. Network relay preserved. Intercept data extracted and transmitted to Interagency Targeting Cell. Data credited with the identification and collapse of a regional threat network. 14 lives assessed saved. Citation sealed by order of JITSI Command Authority. Classification: Joint Interagency Targeting Cell, Special Programs Tier. Colonel Brant had not moved. The duty officer finished. General Wakefield came back on. I was the JITSI commander on Condell Ridge, he said. I was in the command vehicle when that relay post went dark, and every man I had said we'd lost our operator. He stopped. We hadn't lost her. She called in intercept data for 11 hours with 2 of her 3 systems down, and a firefight going on 200 meters up the slope. My men came home because of what she sent us. Another pause. She never filed for the citation herself. Someone in her chain had to push it through for her. That's who you have in that room. I want that on the record. Yes, sir, the duty officer said. And I want to know the name of whoever pulled her badge. Brant's face had gone the color of old concrete. He was looking at the woman, and she was looking at the wall, and the space between them had become something that Tara felt she was not supposed to be witnessing, or perhaps was meant to witness precisely, because someone had to. The door to the anteroom opened again, and this time it was the base commander, Colonel Harriet Voss, who stepped through. She had not been in the building 20 minutes ago. She was here now, and she had Brant's folder in her hand, and her face was the face of a senior officer who has read something in the last 4 minutes that has rearranged the furniture of her morning. "Colonel Brant," she said. That was all she said. Brant turned. "Step out." He stepped out. Colonel Voss crossed the room and stood in front of the woman. In her left hand she held the base access badge. She held it out, and the woman took it. And for a moment, they looked at each other in the way that people look at each other when a great deal has been understood without being said. "Your clearance tier is valid," Voss said. "Your access is fully reinstated. On behalf of this post, I apologize for the manner of this morning." "Thank you, ma'am." "Whetstone," Voss said. She said it like she was reading it off something that mattered. "The general wanted me to tell you that if you ever need anything, anything at all, the Jitsay duty line is open to you. Day or night, he was clear about that." "I know," the woman said. "He always was." Tara followed Colonel Voss back through the door into the credential room, and what she saw when she came through stopped her 3 steps in. 30 people were standing. Not at attention, not in formation, just standing, the way people stand when something has moved them, and sitting down feels like the wrong response to it. The logistics contractor from Bagram was standing. The IT specialist from the network office was standing. The older man from water reclamation was standing with his cap in his hand, and Tara did not know when he had taken it off. Nobody had given an order. Nobody had called the room to any kind of attention. They had simply heard what came through that anteroom door, through the wall and the gap at the bottom, and they had stood up, because that was what the moment asked. The woman came out behind Tara. She put her badge back on her lanyard with both hands, straightening it the way you straighten something that belongs where it is. She picked up her bag. She looked once at the 30 people standing in that fluorescent-lit room. She thanked them with one nod, quiet, direct, the way she did everything, and then she walked to the exit door and pushed it open, and the morning light came in off the parade ground and she was gone. Tara stood at the edge of the room for a long time after the door had closed. She had come in that morning to stamp forms and file renewals, and she had watched a woman sit in a holding room for 40 minutes without once raising her voice, or showing anything that could be called fear, and she had listened to a 2-star general say a single word, a call sign, one word, Whetstone, with a reverence in his voice that Tara had never heard an officer use for anything. The 30 people sat back down, one by one, with the slightly dazed quality of people working out what they had just seen. The room went back to forms and processing, and the shuffle of paperwork. Tara opened her notepad. At the top of the page, she had written the duty roster code, 277-9er-416, and below it, in different ink, from when she'd heard it read aloud, 11 hours and 43 minutes. She capped her pen and left both lines on the page without crossing them out. She thought about the way the woman had thanked her for the apology about the badge, before any of it, when there was nothing to suggest it would amount to anything. "That means something," she had said, like she knew what it cost a junior specialist to say a plain thing in a room with a colonel in it. Tara thought she probably did know. That was the kind of woman who knew exactly what things cost, and had paid most of them without anyone watching. She turned to a fresh page and started on the next form. The parade ground outside was still, and the morning was still, and she did not think she would ever again pass a quiet person in a room without wondering what they were carrying.